I think it's taken the air out of the sails of really the only line of the Biden campaign, which is this guy will destroy the whole system of government.
That was Michael Knowles on The Issue Is from the RNC in Milwaukee this summer when he was confident that Donald Trump would win the election. Well, Michael turned out to be right, and now he's here to gloat. Michael Knowles, welcome back to The Issue Is.
Alex, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for my favorite introduction I've ever heard, which is Michael was right. I want all of my appearances to begin with that phrase.
And by the way, I like your subtle branding of your cigars that you've placed.
I try, as always, for subtlety, nuance, and class, Alex. The Mayflower cigar is sitting right here, now that you mention it.
There you go. All right. Well, let's get into it. A lot of Democrats in this state were stunned that Trump won. Why do you think he did? And what do you think that says about where we're at as a country?
I think Trump is a really talented candidate. I know that there are many, even in the Republican Party, who still doubt that. But I think it's impressive when one can win a non-consecutive second term for only the second time in American history, win the highest office in the land before you've ever been elected dog catcher. He's good. He just brings in a lot of people who are not commonly on the Republican team. However, all of that said, I think the Democrats just really blew it. I think Biden also would have lost to Trump, but I think he would have had a better shot than Kamala. I think the past 4 years have just been disastrous. I think on meat and potatoes, kind of kitchen table topics, the Democrats lost Americans. The inflation was just too bad. The immigration crisis had just gotten a little bit too bad. Foreign policy had spun out of control. And then on the more ideological or social issues, I think Democrats had lost the common sense. Much has been made of the transgender ideology, specifically as applied to children. Now there's a Supreme Court case, U.S. versus Skermeti. I think Democrats really overstepped. And I think people who are center-left, more liberally minded, guys like Joe Rogan, people like J.K. Rowling, even in another country, these are people who want to vote for the left-wing party, but transing the kids was just a little bit too much. So I think the Democrats seem to lose the common sense. They lost a connection to the common people. And so as a result, Trump won not only in an electoral college landslide, but he even won for the first time in 2 decades the popular vote as a Republican.
You really think that Joe Biden in his 80s, the Joe Biden we saw on that debate stage, would do better than Kamala Harris?
Yes, Kamala's a really bad candidate. She's great behind the scenes. She works the levers of power very well. Obviously, she's had a pretty impressive political career. But people underestimate Joe Biden. I know he's got dementia. I know he's obviously in decline. Even if he had been firing on all cylinders, I think his record was just too bad probably to get reelected. But he's good at politics. This is a guy who managed to get himself elected to the Senate before he was constitutionally eligible to do it. He spent half a century in politics, got himself up to VP, was able to get elected president even after he was a cadaver by all accounts. So he's got a real talent in retail politics. Kamala just doesn't have that. She's just not likable. And so it was a mistake. Probably Democrats would have done a lot better with someone like Gretchen Whitmer, would have done a lot better with someone like Gavin Newsom. But I think some of those other Democrats thought, you know what, let's send up Kamala to be the lamb to the slaughter, and we're going to keep our powder dry for 2028.
Of course, Kamala Harris was very successful in California politics, winning a lot of statewide elections here. Let's go to the cabinet, the president-elect's cabinet, filled with a lot of billionaires and Fox News hosts and contributors who are really good on TV. What should we read into how Trump plans to govern based off the team that he's assembled?
Well, I think he needs to start picking more Daily Wire hosts for his cabinet. That would be my first suggestion. But barring that, I think he's made mostly really good picks here. There were some stumbles. Obviously, Matt Gaetz was never going to make it through Senate confirmation. So President Trump let that one go. Now the Democrats are coming after Pete Hegseth. And I think Pete has a much, much stronger claim to his office than maybe even Matt Gaetz did. The knock on Pete Hegseth in general is that he's a TV host, but I think that's actually a plus. Being able to communicate, being able to speak in a manner that is concise and persuasive, I think that's good in a cabinet role, especially when you're going to be the figurehead for the American military. One of your chief jobs is just driving recruitment. I think probably Pete Pete Hegseth has already driven an increase in recruitment and in morale. Now they're attacking him because he's been married multiple times, has a history of being a bit of a Casanova. So those are fair enough attacks, I guess. But if those attacks are going to apply to him, then good luck getting Bobby Kennedy through. And I think it's rich coming from the party of Bill Clinton, the party that tells us that marriage is not a serious matter and divorce is fine and polyamory and polygamy and all the rest of it. I think it's a little bit disingenuous. So I think Hegseth has a really good chance of making it through. If he does go down, I think that's going to pose a real threat to the Trump agenda because they've already got a little blood in the water with the Gates debacle. If Hegseth goes down too, I don't think you're going to get Bobby Kennedy through. I don't think you're going to get Tulsi Gabbard through. Already you're seeing the intelligence community come out and say, dozens of officials warn that Tulsi is a Russian spy or something. Same kind of nonsense you saw with the 51 discredited intelligence officials who came after Trump. And then down the line, you're going to see some problems. But now broadly, I've only focused on the controversial picks. Don't forget, you've got Tulsi, you've got Bobby Kennedy, but then you've also got guys like Marco Rubio, a real establishment pick. Mm-hmm. You've got guys like Mike Waltz. You've got people like Elise Stefanik. And so and you mentioned the billionaires. Obviously, Elon Musk has a big role here. Vivek Ramaswamy is not quite a billionaire, but he's quite well off. So what do we make of it big picture? I think what we're seeing here is an acceleration of what we saw in Trump's picks in the first term, which is that this man is going to be unpredictable. He's going to pick a total dove for some positions, and he's going to pick a John Bolton for another position. And that's been a strength of his in negotiating with his adversaries in America and with America's adversaries overseas, is you can never quite tell where the guy's coming from.
Although I think we both would say that he's not going to pick John Bolton this time. After everything.
Bolton's probably had his moment in the sun
off
in the
the
Trump
list.
circles.
The anti-Trump books don't get you there. But if Hegseth goes down, you see the leaks to the Wall Street Journal that Governor Ron DeSantis could be next. Do you think he'd be better?
I think DeSantis would be great at just about any job in the country. However, I'm a little reluctant to believe these leaks because we have to remember the fights that we're seeing politically right now are not just left versus right, Democrat versus Republican. There are big fights within the Republican Party. Joni Ernst, U.S. Senator, is one of the people holding up the Hegseth nomination. There are reports out that she wants the job for herself, so there might be a little bit of self-interest there. And there are also fights within the Trump camp. So there are factions within the Trump camp that are fighting and vying for influence. And so when I see these leaks to places like the Wall Street Journal, I wonder if it's sort of like a push-pull, supposed leaks that are really just trying to get another candidate into a decent position. That is in no way a knock on DeSantis. He's an extremely competent, extremely intelligent guy. I'm sure he'd be great in any role Trump put him in. But as of now, I think it would be a real big mistake to let Hegseth go. One, because I think Hegseth would do a great job in the position. But two, I think it would seriously jeopardize the rest of Trump's picks moving forward.
Where do you think that the Democratic Party more broadly should go from here? And who do you think would be their strongest nominee in 2028?
Woke Caesar Gavin Newsom, your governor. I think there's no question about it. That's not a phrase of mine. I borrowed it from the great pseudonymous Twitter account Edmund Smirk, but I think it holds. Newsom is a really talented politician. I am a former resident, as you know, Elex, of Mussolini's failed state. However, I got to give credit where credit is due. The guy is really talented at retail politics. I look around the rest of the Democrat Party right now. I don't quite see that. Josh Shapiro is somewhat attractive in Pennsylvania. He doesn't cut quite the same image as Governor Newsom does. And also Josh Shapiro has the baggage of being Jewish at a time when the base of the Democratic Party is become vociferously anti-Israel. So I think that unjustly would be a knock against him. Gretchen Whitmer, maybe. I don't think she quite has it. Mayor Pete, I don't think he's going to make it across the finish line. I guess they could have tried to run Kennedy, but Kennedy's with the Republicans now. When I look around the field for 2028, an election campaign that has already begun, you see Gavin Newsom using $25 million of state funds essentially to give himself an early campaign to run as the presumptive Democrat nominee. I would put my money on Newsom, albeit quite early.
Do you think that Newsom would be the toughest person to beat? Or are you saying that because you want to run against him? You think Newsom is actually the strongest candidate?
Yes, I'm being disinterested and charitable to the Democrat side, Elex. Pains me to do, but I think he would be the toughest one to beat right now. Who would I most like to run against? Kamala, no question. There's a leak out that Kamala's told her advisors to prepare potentially for a 2028 run. That would be great. Please let me know where I can send my donation and if there are any federal maximum contributions I can give. I think she would be easy. Buttigieg would be easy to beat. Whitmer's a little tougher. Shapiro, I think, basically would be easy to beat. Newsom is the one who really stands out to me. In part also, not just because he looks good and he talks good and he's the governor of a big and important state, and he's been in politics since he was in diapers, but also because he's a great example of Democrats at their version of their best, which is he is quite progressive. You know, he was one of the first Democrat politicians to support the redefinition of marriage and bringing in same-sex couples back when it was still unpopular up in San Francisco. So he's got a lot of progressive bona fides, but he kind of sounds like a moderate, and he makes you feel good when he speaks. Even when the guy gets caught red-handed violating his own COVID rules at the French Laundry, somehow he gets around that. He's survived a recall challenge, so he's a tough politician. He's been tested. I, as a Republican, would not look forward to running against him in 28.
Well, I was not expecting this to turn into the Michael Knowles endorses Gavin Newsom's campaign. So this, we just gave
Hopefully I can damage him by doing that.
Okay. Wow. Another big story this week, President Biden pardoning his son after repeatedly saying that he wouldn't do it. Governor Newsom came out and said that he was disappointed and frustrated by that happening. Were you surprised?
No, I was not surprised. I don't know anyone who was genuinely surprised by that. If anyone was surprised, they haven't been paying attention. The reason they might have been surprised is because Biden said point blank on multiple occasions, I will not pardon my son. Karine Jean-Pierre, the White House press secretary, said point blank, no, there is no possibility that Joe will pardon Hunter Biden. But Joe Biden is one of the most prolific and notable liars in politics. This has been true for 50 years. Even Democrats in moments of candor will admit that Joe has a particular problem with the truth. And I'm not surprised at all. You know, even just from a purely human perspective, one, it's his kid. It's his last surviving kid, so he's just going to take care of his boy. All right. Two, Joe Biden is deeply personally implicated in the crimes that Hunter is accused of, even the crimes that he wasn't even charged with yet. When Joe Biden came out and he said, well, we have a lot of evidence because we have Hunter Biden's laptop. We know that he was paid a ton of money, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars from a Ukrainian oil and natural gas company. He has no expertise in that. He was obviously peddling his father's influence as vice president, to say nothing of raising money elsewhere in the world. But regardless, the DOJ didn't go after him for that. They tried to go after him after much outcry on relatively low-level tax charges and not filing out a gun for him correctly. So when Joe Biden in that pardon said, look, I said I wouldn't do this, but I'm doing it anyway because Hunter was treated differently. That's true. He was treated with much greater leniency than other people who had committed Hunter Biden's crimes. And also, I think Joe is worried that he might be dragged before some committees and he might be investigated. The one problem with the pardon, though, for Joe Biden is that now that that Hunter has this unprecedented blanket pardon for anything he might have done for the past 10 years at the federal level, now he can't plead the fifth. Right. So if the Republicans are inclined to investigate this, and I don't think they are, but if they were to do that, there is a world in which Hunter Biden now might be more likely to have to testify against his father if the big guy was involved.
Yeah, and just a point of clarification, Hunter Biden is his last remaining son, but Joe Biden does have a daughter, Ashley Biden, as well. We want to play personal issues with you to wrap things up, to get to know you a little bit better and have some fun. These are rapid-fire things. First thing that comes to mind to get to know you. So here we go, Michael. What is the favorite TV show you've recently binged?
I haven't binged a TV show in years. The last one that I got into was Dark Matter. I made it 3 episodes.
Favorite movie you've watched lately?
Me, Myself, and Irene. Probably for the dozenth time.
Okay. Favorite holiday song?
Favorite holiday song? Oh, well, I'll have to say, Alex, despite what appears to be a Christmas tree, it is Advent. It's not Christmas. O come, Emmanuel. Ask me again on the 25th. I'll give you a different answer.
And what's your favorite holiday tradition?
I love Christmas Eve. And Christmas, there were wonderful things on Christmas Eve, midnight mass, and all this, but I have a personal one, which is that with my stepbrother, going back 15 years now, we play the Frasier drinking game in the evening. And we sit and we watch reruns of Frasier. One person is Team Frasier, one is Team Knowles, and every time your character does or says anything pretentious, you have to drink, which means that you are speaking in cursive within about 5 minutes.
Wow, there's a tradition. All right, Michael, thank you so much. Great to see you. And in the holiday spirit, we go to break with some music, Joy to the World. Up next.